Shweta Mathis. If you are someone who loves cricket and is also aware of the geopolitical issues in the world, then you need to watch this session till the very end. Why I say that is because इसी क्रिकेट के अराउंड एक ऐसी कहानी लिखी गई है जिसमें क्रिकेट को एज एन इमेजरी एक सूत्रधार की तरह इस्तेमाल किया गया है टू टॉक अबाउट बिगर इशूज इन द वर्ल्ड लाइक इंडिया पाकिस्तान रिलेशंस, जियोपॉलिटिकल इशूज, वॉर एटसेट्रा. आज इसी बुक फाइनल इनिंग्स के ऑथर मिस्टर सुनील गुप्ता हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं. थैंक यू सर.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
And I would like to introduce that he is just not an author, he's also a writer, a commentator, a cricket commentator, history buff. He's done all sort of things. Is there anything जो आपने छोड़ा है?
I'm sure there's quite a few things I haven't done which I'd like to, and I'll try to. For instance, going on a horse riding safari in Argentina. That is on my bucket list. Yeah,
I'm sure
one of those things.
बहुत जल्दी you're going to do that.
Well, I sincerely hope so. Yes.
So sir, I was reading your book last night and I couldn't stop wondering कि आपने क्रिकेट को ही क्यों choose किया to talk about such bigger issues in the world? Like.
Yeah. Well. Had this been South America, it would have been soccer. Had this been America, it might have been basketball or NFL, that type. It's obviously because यहाँ subcontinent में cricket सब जानते हैं.
Right.
सब countries में cricket ही चलती है. So that is the one language that people understand. आप जहाँ भी जाएं, और आप अफगानिस्तान जाएं या श्रीलंका जाएं, you will find that people, cricket is the thing that either unites or divides them. So that is why I thought that the cricket backdrop is very important because we resonate with it. In every day, every way, we have some opinion about it, we think about it, we comment on the players, we comment on the games, we know all the other games, all the other teams who play, etc. So I thought cricket, as you said so well, is a sutradhar in this book. As I mentioned, this is not a cricket book. It's a human story set in a cricketing backdrop. Why cricketing? I just explained to you, because it is the one thing that everybody recognizes in the subcontinent. It is an emotional thing. Exactly, that's right, yes.
And also I was wondering कि cricket का इस्तेमाल आपने किया, of course, to talk about bigger issues, but what are those bigger issues?
Shweta, when a book is developing, and I'm sure a lot of people will tell you the same things, it doesn't come as one thing. So, okay, I've got to write this. It's sort of like a dish, it cooks inside you quite some time, and you add this ingredient and think about that. So I think the three basic issues that drive any book, but certainly this one. The first is the three conflicts, let me put it this way. The first conflict is between people, right? And we see that every day. As you said, geopolitical conflict, there is communal conflict, there is social conflict. There are conflicts everywhere. What's taking place in Europe, what's taking place between China and the other countries, that's conflict. The second conflict is the internal conflict. There is always conflict inside you, right?
Would you want to talk more about
it? Because you think about yourself, think anybody, if you're really honest with yourself, you're always conflicted in sometimes what you want to do, what you don't want to do, what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing, right? And so I'll come back to that because that is actually very fundamental to the story. And the last thing is where we're all united, which is conflict with the environment. In this one thing, I think every person in this planet, 8 billion or whatever it is, we are absolutely together because we are in conflict with the environment. And that is not a very happy situation to be, right? So that is the one thing that unites us, unfortunately. So these three strands, they have come together in this particular book.
Right. For those of you who have not read the book yet, I think we should just summarize it for them because उनको पता चलना चाहिए कि आखिर इस book में क्या-क्या जो issues हम बोल रहे हैं वो क्या है, and about the character of course, Ramdas Upreti.
So I chose the main protagonist. He's a test cricketer. He's a well-recognized Indian test cricketer. His name is Ramdas Upreti, and he's from Uttarakhand. Why did I say Uttarakhand and not Punjab or Haryana or some other place and all that? Because I've spent a lot of my childhood there, and I think we all recognize the problems that are taking place environmentally, especially in the fragile mountains. So he's grown up there, he studied there, and that plays a role as the book goes on because he studied in a very good school over there. And that is why I wanted to have Upreti, which people would recognize in that part of the world, and it's an unusual name. So that's why I chose him, or I chose this name and I chose that background for him. The other main characters I'll tell you a little bit about how it starts. And he's playing a test match in Adelaide, and he gets seriously injured. He's injured on the head, and he undergoes, surgery, skull surgery, and he is looked after by a Pakistani nurse, whose father happened to be the umpire in that test match, and that is where it all starts, right? To explain this, you must understand final innings is the end. Right? So there's like a test match, you have a first innings, second innings, third innings, final innings. And each innings builds up to something. When the first innings ends in a test match, you say, now what's going to happen? And the story unfolds. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
In fact, even when a sports person gets onto the field, he does not know what's going to happen. Right? It's a completely new page he turns every time. So that is the thing I want to get across, that here's a story which is going to include all these elements. Right? Because obviously there is geopolitical conflict, there is social conflict, there's environmental conflict, but of course there's internal conflict, because he also has, if I might use the word, an ex-girlfriend of his who was with him in university. And so she also comes, even though they have parted ways. So you can understand the sort of quasi-romantic tension that grows over there. But I must also tell you, that this book has got nothing to do with the usual things we think about or talk about when we talk about cricket, which is, T20 and corruption, match fixing, all these things. Nothing, absolutely nothing about these. It is really how people, individuals relate to each other, what they think and what they don't do. So there's really no romance, except that there is some romance, if you know what I mean. And that is what I want, because that's what happens in life. You don't move from A to Z in one go. You go to A to B, from B back to C, C then back to B. And that is what happens in this book. So he goes through a whole period of transition after he's injured badly. And he does not know whether he can come back, because when you're injured in the head, you're always scared. And it's his ex-girlfriend who gets him back into the academy to rehabilitate, to learn, to get back onto the thing. And then he comes back into cricket, and he doesn't play for India, he's not selected. It's not one of those happy books where everything happens and he scores centuries and India wins and all that sort of thing. So anyhow, this book continues, and obviously there is the other part of this, which is the serious part of this, is not just the personal relationships which drive this story, but also ये जो subcontinent में हो रहा है. अब देखिए, there are reasons for this, we all recognize that, right? That why we don't play cricket in certain countries and we haven't played with them for some time. But जब भी हम खेले हैं, it has been a huge equation. I remember I was in England watching the final of the Champions Trophy, 2017, India versus Pakistan. It was a sea of blue and green. And let me tell you, there was no animosity, right? Maybe it was England, maybe whatever it was. And everything was taken in good spirit. I have done commentary when Pakistan was here last, 2007. And Shoaib Akhtar was the biggest hit. I'm not saying this for any other reason. When India goes there, also, it happens. But unfortunately, sport as a unifier of people is not happening. And then the crux of the story comes, that can an individual make a difference? And I believe that an individual can make a difference. He can at least try to make a difference, right? And that is what Ramdas Upreti does in his own way, to try and make a difference between the relationships by doing something that nobody's ever done before, which I will not reveal because then you know the story.
You read the book first.
Yeah. The other thing, and which is the environmental thing, and which I'm very passionate about, is that as an individual everybody can do. You can start today. You can start today by not using plastic bags. I'm saying simple thing.
Right.
Don't use plastic bags. I think I mentioned to you that there are 180 trillion microparticles of plastic in the ocean. That is a huge number. It's probably underestimated, but it's there. And there is, and I spoke about that island of plastic in the Pacific Ocean, South Pacific. It is 1.6 square million kilometers high or round. It's about 3 times the size of France. That's created by us. So I'm saying how the individual can impact everything that is going around him.
So like you said, like every effort counts, right? So while I was reading your book, I felt like this is your effort to get into the minds of your audience and force them to do something about it.
I'm so glad that you said this, Shweta. There have been many people who have said the same thing to me. I don't know whether I can force them to do anything about it, but I can at least force them to think about it.
Yeah.
That's all I want them to do. In fact, there's this reader from England who said, you made us think about all these. You didn't provide a happy ending. And I must tell you, there is no Bollywood ending. There is no band Baja Barat at the end of this whole thing. There's none. He fails in his mission, but he tries. And वो मैंने आपको कहानी भी सुनाई थी, Robert the Bruce of Scotland. Okay, many, I'm talking about a millennium ago, when he was trying to regain his throne, and he was not being allowed to, or he was losing the battles. And after a battle, he ended up in a cave. And this, I think, almost every child should know if he doesn't know now. He ended up in a cave, and he's sitting in this cave, and he's निराशा में है. And suddenly he sees a spider. A spider is trying to climb up the wall. And it tries and it falls, and it tries and it falls, and it tries and it falls, and finally it makes it. तो वहाँ आपने ये कहावत सुनी होगी कि try again till at last you succeed.
Yeah.
And that is the story of life. You must try. And if one person starts, and one person can pass it on to another person, and one person can pass it on to another person, I think a huge movement can be created, which pains nobody, especially to do with the environment. Excuse me. And I think that is something that I was very passionate about in this book. And of course, how to resolve conflict. Now that may not be something that you and I can do as individuals, because there are so many other factors at play. But we can try. We can try and show the way. We can try and talk about the way. We can say, okay, we can try and do these things so that people can understand that eventually we're all human beings.
Yeah,
Right? Wherever we come from, we're all human beings. We have the same emotions. And therefore, how can we use these to create a happier world?
Right. Talking about the happy ending you mentioned earlier, like I understand that you wanted to keep it realistic, and because in reality ज़रूरी नहीं है कि सब कुछ अच्छा हो, right? But अगर हम चाहें through our efforts, that ending, that happy ending, we can reach there. You believe that?
100%.
Yeah.
Which is why ये जो title है final innings, I mean cricket, it sounds cricket, but actually it's a metaphor. क्योंकि I firmly believe कि जो हम सब लोग 8 billion people इस planet पे खेल रहे हैं, वो हमारी final innings है. आप देख रहे हो यहाँ फ्लड्स हो रही हैं, वहाँ अर्थक्वेक्स हो रहे हैं, वहाँ वोल्केनोज चल रहे हैं, वहाँ टोर्नेडोज, अमेरिका में कितने टोर्नेडोज, हरिकेन्स, डिस्ट्रक्शन, जापान, क्यूबा, so many places, and this is much more than before. क्यों? Because there is global warming. Global warming कौन करा रहा है? हम करा रहे हैं, है ना? तो eventually it boils down to us. So that is the whole point, that how can you make that difference, and we can make that happy ending. I said, so you start. Let him start, let you start, let this person start. Let's not use plastic bottles. Let's have a cooler here with filtered water. I'm telling you, you can eliminate plastic bottles. But आप हवाई जहाज में जाएंगे तो आपको plastic bottle मिलेगी. You go to hotels, receptions, you get plastic bottles. Now in the West, a lot of places, आप meetings में जाए, they don't give plastic bottles. They have jugs of water, proper water, and you pour it into a glass and drink. वो तो हम पहले ज़माने में करते थे, right? You may not remember, that's how we used to drink our water. So I'm saying, if it starts one person to make a movement,
right.
And that is what I want people to think about, that can I make a difference? Can my child make a difference?
Let's talk about your book again. I noticed that आपका जो cover है book में, that is quite interesting. Would you like to talk about it?
Yes. I was very clear for once in my life what I wanted to demonstrate or to display on that cover. First of all, obviously cricket, because that's the background. So it's represented by a cricket ball, which is an old cricket ball, and it's torn down the seam, right? And on one side, it's written actually, the Pakistan, Lahore, etc. On one side is written India, Delhi, Amritsar, etc., etc. So, and there is also a little barbed wire, which is slightly difficult to see, but it's there. So actually that ball summarizes what is the conflict that is happening between us and how cricket is playing some role in that. And then at the bottom of that cricket ball, which is worn and torn, it's not shiny new cricket ball, there is a white rose which symbolizes the romantic aspect of this book, and there is blood, which symbolizes the unfortunate incidents that take place. So I think, you know, it as I said, it's an amalgam of all these things coming together through human beings.
Right.
I think आपने भी कहा कि जब आप पढ़ रहे थे तो the relationships came through. It's all about relationships. Any movie, good movie you'll see is about relationships. I'm not talking about ta, which you see 95 of them, you know, this is kidnapped, that is done, all that sort of thing. True human relationships are what drive memorable stories and memorable things in life, and that is what I have attempted to do. I mean, I hope I have succeeded, but eventually, जब आप पढ़ती हैं ना, it's up to you. It's up to the individual how he interprets it, how he takes it on, etc.
Well, जैसे आप कहते हो कि it's not just about India and Pakistan in the book, and I read it. It's not. There are other countries like England, Australia, of course. But आपका जो cover है उसमें भी you have chosen India and Pakistan particularly. Also, I read a few reviews about the book, and I found it somewhere that you are trying to, you know, maybe through cricket आप उन relations को easy करना चाहते हो. You feel that जो cricket हमारे लिए मतलब इंडिया पाकिस्तान का अगर मैच चल रहा है तो people they get hyper, you know, people are crashing their TVs and everything. But you believe कि यही cricket, यही जो दो nations के बीच में cricket खेला जाता है, that can be a ground that through which peace can be got.
I think, I don't know whether peace can be got, but certainly I believe that more friendship can be got. I think we start with that, okay? I think certainly, no question about it. Eventually देखिए, अगर आप किसी से कुछ करना चाहते हैं, you need to make friends, right? You and I suppose we need to talk, no? अगर हम बातें ही नहीं करेंगे, now you may not want to talk, and you also know that, I mean, at the end of the day, there have been attempts, the track through diplomacy and all that. I'm not even getting into the political aspect of it. I'm only sticking to the sport, because the sport is a metaphor for what is happening today, right? And as I say, that it is a huge unifying factor. I know this is a cliche. सब बोलते हैं, you know, sport unifies and all that. But sport brings out the best in you also, right? Now we saw, for instance, in the 2021 T20 World Cup, जो दुबई में हुआ था, India and Pakistan were playing. What happened at the end? Virat Kohli went up to Babar Azam, and they, you know, this thing, and the wicketkeeper came up as well and all that. That is what sport is all about.
And it was appreciated.
And it was appreciated by everybody. I mean, Twitter went mad about that. That is what sport can do. It can show that enmities, some of them can be exaggerated. Of course there are problems, we completely understand. And in fact, the other strand in this book is terrorism. It is very much a part of our lives. And it's not that I've ignored it, it's very much there. In fact, that is the one thing that breaks the entire thing. It doesn't work, because I firmly believe that terrorists are the worst possible human beings on earth, right? They may think that they have a cause. They may think that हम सही कर रहे हैं इसलिए जो है. In fact, when I wrote this book, I talk about an incident in the book as a story. Right? Before the first terrorist attack that took place in the southern hemisphere, which was in New Zealand, if you remember that church or that mosque or something was attacked, right? This came before that, because I knew this is bound to happen at some point of time. So these are things that you think about in terms of the overall geopolitical or political, let's say, environment in the world. और अब जब आप सोचते हो तो बोलते हो ये तो होना ही है, होगा एक दिन. और तो you know, I feel कि चलो I predated it by a year or so, but वो हुआ था. So I had that as something that comes back to haunt this particular story in the final innings, because you can't wish it away. It is there around us. Right, and I hope it goes, but it is there around us. I mean, conflict is everywhere. Look what's happening in the Middle East, right? ISIS and the Taliban and the Al Qaeda and so forth, 9/11, all these things. Why is conflict there, Shweta? You tell me. Why does conflict happen like this? Conflict happens because either people want more, because they're insecure. You know, they're not happy with what they've got, or they believe, oh, I am right and he is wrong. भाई जी किसने बताया आपको? Who has told you that you have the right to be right and he has the wrong to be wrong? That can't be, right? So it's what you've been taught. And I go back to values. What values? अब हम लोग संस्कार बोलते हैं, वही है संस्कार. संस्कार क्या हैं आपके? किसने सिखाया? जब when you are born, right? As they say, you are just born. Everything else is added on to you. आपका नाम, आपकी जाति, आपका धर्म, सब कुछ is added on to you. You don't know anything when you come in. So those are the things that, if love is added, If something else has had it, that's what will drive you during your life.
While reading your book, I don't know if it's in the book or किसी रिव्यू में मैंने ये पढ़ा कि इंडिया और पाकिस्तान दो ऐसे कंट्रीज़ हैं जिनका कल्चर ऑफ कोर्स सेम है, मतलब इतना सिमिलर हम किसी और कंट्री के साथ नहीं है जितना हम पाकिस्तान के साथ वी शेयर अ लॉट ऑफ सिमिलैरिटीज़, बट येट बिकॉज ऑफ कोर्स ऑब्वियस रीजंस वी आर अपार्ट. तो सर वापस कमिंग बैक टू दैट, आपने कहा कि एफर्ट्स हुए थे टू यू नो ईज द सिचुएशंस एंड द रिलेशंस, लाइक वुड यू वांट टू टॉक अबाउट इट?
No, I mean, I just have read it in the newspapers.
Efforts, yeah.
No, I've just been, you know, there was throughout time there was there been what they call track two diplomacy, right? You know, to back channel talks to try and mend fences, find a way through, etc., etc. In fact, there's this book by the late High Commissioner to Pakistan, Satinder Lamba. He passed away, but he's written a book on, and he talks about this. And in fact, that he was also going to be a part of it, or he was a part of it, whatever it is. So it is there. It's not that there is complete Maun Vrat. It is there. Something has to happen. After all, this SCO meeting, where the foreign minister is supposed to be coming in, so on and so forth. That without dialogue, nothing can be solved. Now, it behoves not just us, them, certainly them, no question about it, that somebody must take that first step, and to my mind, it must be them. Because at the end of the day, this is where it's actually emanating from. And I must tell you about this clip. We'll leave that for another day. But anyhow, there was this thing on Pakistan TV which came again as a part of WhatsApp forwards and so on, so that where people are saying, why are we going after this whole, the K word and stuff. So the point is that people understand. There are certain things that are whipped up. There are certain things that are brought up because people want to deflect attention from what's going on in our neighboring country in terms of the economic situation and so particularly. So this is where the unfortunate part of it comes by. Now, can you imagine? And I go back to Europe. Okay, Europe 50, 60 years ago was completely torn by World War II. Completely, absolutely torn. Right? Today, it's a common market. It's the EU, European Union. They have one currency. Can happen. France and Germany were and England were the worst enemies. They fought each other. Millions of soldiers died. Millions of civilians died. But today they're part of England is no longer because of Brexit, but they're part of the EU. Yeah. How did this happen? How did East Germany and West Germany come together when they were so, the enmity between them was, you read about the spy stories and the Cold War and all that, it was there. There's one. The Berlin Wall came down. The wall came down. The walls can come down if somebody starts truly from everywhere starts making an effort. I firmly believe that.
I think थोड़ा हमारा conversation काफ़ी political हो गया and काफ़ी serious हो गया. तो since you are you're a sports commentator, so कुछ ऐसे light moments you might know some of such like instances जहाँ पे कुछ relations build हुए हो off field, on field, something.
As I said, that you see. I remember that 2017 final at the Oval. Of course, Pakistan beat India, but I remember that Mahendra Singh Dhoni was carrying Sarfraz Ahmed's daughter in his arms while the presentation was being done, or pre-presentation and so on and so forth. That is what I think. If you see them talk to each other, right, they'll show that they are, they're sports persons, right. A lot of them come from the Punjab part, and you keep reading about. And I've met a couple of cricketers from here, and a couple of cricketers from there, who said that when they came here on the field, there were the worst possible insults that were exchanged in the local languages and all that. Yeah. But after that, they went back and they had a drink and they had dinner and they did. It was like friendship. So these are the things. I was telling you this. So I was telling you about the 2007 thing. So I was doing commentary at what is today called the Arun Jaitley Stadium, Firozshah Kotla, and it was India-Pakistan. And the dressing room was there, and Sachin Tendulkar and a couple of other Indian players came out, and obviously, the crowd gravitated there and saying Sachin, Sachin. And then suddenly Shoaib Akhtar walked down to the other end of the field, because they were fielding. And suddenly many people went there, and there was banter, and they were throwing comments, and he was throwing comments. That's what you like to see, because it just shows it's a human game. Eventually, nothing is run by robots, right? And you are human. It will boil over on the field. It will happen. I mean, the famous one of Javed Miyadan at Kiran Mori 92 World Cup, when he was jumping around and making faces at Kiran Mori. So those are things that make these things happen. But otherwise, I think the bonhomie, by and large, has been absolutely terrific. Imran Khan, I remember in the 70s, was here as a model for Synthol soap. Right? We know that. We know that their commentators have been here doing commentary on the IPL and other things. We know that people like Wasim Akram have coached the Kolkata Knight Riders and all that. It's not that there's been no interaction whatsoever. So it's been there, and you know, I hope that we can get back to those days.
I think this would be my final question to you. Again, I would want to talk about India-Pakistan because हमारी audience का भी interest वहाँ पे रहेगा ही. So, do players of India and Pakistan actually like playing with each other?
I think they look forward to playing with each other because it's like the Ashes. It's like England and Australia, which is going to happen this summer. And I was on a program with the BBC the other day, and we were talking about the upcoming Ashes, and so it's a big thing. So India-Pakistan is like the famous thing called the Ashes. I mean, it's like our rivalry is something that I think both teams enjoy. They look forward to it. It's really one way of both sort of demonstrating your abilities, showing who's better, and that's a big thing, right? You always want to show who's better between, let's say, two neighboring countries, yeah, right? So yes, absolutely. I mean, if you announce tomorrow that, hey, you know, we're going to play, which happens in the book actually, we're going to play a series, I will tell you, the tickets, the TV rights, everything will be sold out in seconds, and that's what it's all about.
Before we end this session, is there something that you want to let your readers know about the book?
Well, first of all, it's a long book. Remember, a test match is 5 days, and this is 4 innings, like a test match. But I can promise you one thing, that I know people who've read it in 2 or 3 days. Shweta herself has read 100 pages overnight, which is terrific. Once you start reading it, I hope that you'll not want to let go, not just because of the human relationships, but because of the issues that are raised, which I think all of you will resonate with. You will, at least you will understand, you will appreciate, because they relate to you. This book relates to you. You are a part of this book. I think if you understand that, I mean, every book, I mean, you involve yourself in that story, but this one, because here, this is something so close to our hearts. We're seeing what's happening in the world environmentally, to us environmentally, what's happening across our social spectrum, our political spectrum, all these things. I think you will resonate with it, and you will start thinking, as this reader from England said, at least I hope it will start you thinking. And if it starts you thinking, I think I would have achieved absolutely everything.
With this, we come to an end of this show, and I hope इसके बाद आप जाके Amazon पे, I think it's available on Amazon.
Yes, you can get it on Amazon, in the bookshops, wherever you want. Yeah.
You go and purchase the book right away because I'm enjoying it, and I hope to see you back again on Z News. Thank you.